Hello and welcome, and in today's video tutorial we'll be looking at a little plugin for Photoshop called Map Generator, made by the Orange Box company. I'll put a post to the link to where to buy this plugin down below in the description. Please note that this plugin is fairly old now, but it is currently working with Photoshop 2019 at the time of creating this video. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that I've obviously purchased the plugin, and all I need to do is follow the instructions provided to install it into my Photoshop file. It's simply a case of installing the .jsk file, the JavaScript file, which is what runs the plugin. Open up Photoshop, and I'm just going to go to create new, and I'm going to create a 1080p HDTV resolution because I typically work with film files. So I'm just going to make this full size for now. And at the top, when I've got the plugin installed, I should have this option called Window, Extensions, 3D Map Generator, and the one I went with is the Atlas pack because it allows me to export my images as 3D files that I can then put into something like Blender or 3ds Max to do more work with. So if I just simply click on that, and it will bring up a new window. Now I've made this window actually a tab on my side just by dragging my window to my side toolbar over here, but I can simply just unlink it like so, and you'd have a window like this, and you get given these four options. So you've got find real world location, which will open up our web browser, and it'll ask us to type in our license key, which I already have provided, purchased. We have 3D Earth, which will basically create us a 3D Earth within the software. There's a very limited options with that. And then once we've got our location created, we can then simply click on create new terrain, and we can also edit previous projects. We're going to leave these two files down here as are, but we could toggle whether it creates the height maps automatically, and also our drawing tools for later on. But I'm just going to return to this for now. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to click on find real world location, and this will bring up a window like so where it'll ask us for please enter your purchase code. Now because I've already purchased this, I'm just going to simply open up where I've already got it signed in for me like so, and it should take a while to load up. It isn't the fastest website in the world, I will say that. And it's not necessarily the most reliable. So what would normally happen is you would be greeted with a sort of either white screen like this or a sort of zoomed out view of the default part of the world. But what we need to do is we need to tell it where we want to create this map data from. So I'm going to use Google Maps, but you could also use OpenStreetMap. Same principles will apply for whichever one you use. So it's now loaded finally. So you can see it's just remembered the last sort of area I was roughly using. So I'm just going to click on Google Maps, and it should open up our Google Maps tab. By default, it will always try and put to where you are on your location. So for me at the moment, I'm currently on the University of Lincoln grounds, hence why it sort of put me here. But what I'm going to look for is somewhere with some form of like mountainous region, because it's the best to illustrate this with. So I'm going to just type in, let's think of an area. So I'm going to go with the Andes in America, just because we kind of know what those are. We've seen them before, obviously. Andes in America, mountain range. I'm just going to zoom in to that region. Just turn on satellite just so I can sort of see something that would look quite good as a slice of. So I'm going to go probably for this region here because it's quite a lot of breakups and a lot of paths and such. So let's go for this here like so. So I want to make sure that I have my region that I want. So I'm using satellite to preview the area I want to use. I then need to go to my little hamburger maps option over here and go to make sure I'm on the map option, because we need to use this to get our URL that we'll be using for our 3D map generation. So just simply click into the search bar. I copy that URL. I need to paste it into the 3D generator page and press OK. And if all goes well, it should hopefully load up that area as a terrain map. This can take some time, so I will skip forward if need be. So it's finally loaded. A little top tip I've noticed is if I toggle between tabs, so I went back from here to here, it actually will load this up if it seems to be indefinitely doing nothing. Don't ask me why that is. It might be a bug with my machine, or it could be a bug with the actual website, but either way, this seems to be a way of making it load quicker anyway. So now I've got my region height map created here. I just simply need to click on this button here and save it as a PNG. I'm keeping auto exposure on, although if I wanted to, I could adjust how much is shown. So if we think of this sort of logically, like most height maps in any 3D modeling program, white is sort of elevation, and pure blackness is sort of decretion, essentially. So in this case, the black is our troughs and the white is our peaks. I could adjust this manually if I wanted to get more control. I'm just going to keep on auto exposure though, because it will do what I need it to do for the purposes of this tutorial. I'm going to save this as a PNG, and this will save it into my downloads. And now I need to go back onto my Google Maps. I need to change my view to a satellite, making sure I'm not moving or scrolling or clicking off, because any change I do here now will throw off our data. So we need to make sure we are very careful with this. We go to menu and we need to turn labels off, so we don't have any of these little signs around, so we've just got the pure texture. I'm then going to collapse the side panel, and I'm just simply now going to take a screenshot of my screen, and I'm just going to capture that like so. So now what I can do is I now need to go into my Photoshop. I simply need to drag my captured PNG of the Andes, and I'm going to drop this to the top top corner here, like so, and I'm just going to confirm that, and then I'm going to go and find my captured screenshot, and I'm going to bring this in as a new layer, like so. I'm just going to zoom this in so we can see what we're doing. I'm just going to minimize this over here, like so. So what I need to do is I need to make sure that this texture file is mapped perfectly to our height map data. Now the easiest way of doing this is, the reason we took the entire screenshot rather than just this area, is we need to match the top corner, our top left corner, to our top left corner of our screen where the map data is shown. Bearing in mind, we're going to obviously have to lose anything where we've got this sort of maps and Google, icons around. So I'm going to have to now move this up to top corner like so. So the corner edge of my window would be perfectly lined up to the corner edge of my height map data. To help this, I can reduce my transparency so I can see below what's underneath a bit easier. And then I just simply need to scale this up proportionately and make sure that the bottom corner also lines up with my height map data. So I'm going to just have to pull this up a little bit. I can use my arrow keys to do more fine movements. So just making sure that we line this up as well as we can. And now if I go to 100% like that, there we go. So we should have it like this. It's at this point that I will want to start to rename my layers. So I need to rename this image, our texture image, to texture. I'm going to keep it in lowercase, seems to work, like so. And I'm just going to make sure that's also 100%. And now I'm going to go and crop my image. So I'm going to have to go to my crop tool, And I want to make sure that I crop my image so I don't have any of this copyright or iconography on it, because that will show up in our final piece. So we've got this region here. So therefore, bear in mind when you're capturing your data or using this plugin, you need to make sure that you allow for some cutoff in that regard. So I'll just simply click confirm to crop this to where I want it to be. And now with the height map selected, I will need to open up my map generator window again. So again, that would be Windows, Extensions, 3D Map Generator Atlas. And I just simply need to click on Create New Terrain. And what this should do is it should start to generate us a 3D data using our height map to build up the peaks and troughs, and the texture to overlay our, well, texture onto that peak and trough model. And this can take some time, and it may not always work first time, so we need to bear that in mind. And obviously the speed of this somewhat does depend on your machine, and again, this plugin is a little bit out of date in comparison to the version of Photoshop I'm using. So there's our 3D data without the texture applied. It's now should be applying our texture to it, which it has done, like so. And once it's completed, there we go. So this is now our 3D generated image, essentially. It's important to note it is an image. We can export this as a .obj 3D model if we wanted to, but for now we will just concentrate on it as this. We can also adjust its rotation, so we could rotate the image using the tools here, but again it has to rebuild the scene, like so. We can also adjust our height map, so if our heights don't look quite right, we could compensate for that and adjust it. So for in this example, I can make the sort of elevations more exaggerated, or I could make them very sort of minimal, like so. I'm going to go for somewhere around the 12 mark on this because I know it's not super flat. Actually, maybe that's a bit too strong. Maybe we'll go down to about 8 on this, because it's rocky, but it's not super high either. So it's again about a little bit of eyeballing here. It's not going to be perfectly exact. So now we've got this in here, we could go to icons and we could start adding in some of the provided icons it provides to us. So we could add in some clouds, for example. We could obviously scale these down and move these around. We can also add our own in. So if we want to make our own, we'd just make a new layer, insert our image, and make sure it lines up to where we want it to be. If we wanted to actually have like paths or sort of signs along like a route, what we would need to do is we would need to go to the texture data. So what we'd do is before we actually create the 3D map, we would actually, within here, we would just simply paint on our paths and our little like lines, etc. Because it's a lot easier to do it here and then click 3D generate terrain rather than trying to work on it in here. Again, it's just working out what you want to do before you sort of go too far down the rabbit hole in that regard. I could add an airplane just for the sake of it. So you can see it adds the shadow with these images. So if we want to do that, we need to make sure that obviously our own images would also do the same thing, and that's not too hard to do. We just basically duplicate the image and then move it down, adjust the threshold, and then the opacity. Another thing we can do is we can also, let's just confirm that. We can also adjust the sort of texture that we've got applied here. So this is using our actual terrain, but we could, if we wanted to, use one of the preset gradient files that gets given to us. This will overwrite our texture, just as sort of a heads up on that regard. But I've just sort of shown you some of the presets it comes with, so we can kind of create this sort of false sort of like heat map data kind of thing. Let's just update those layers now. Okay, So again, if you didn't have the texture data, you could theoretically use your own generated texture on it by again either painting on the image yourself or using one of the supplied gradients. We can also go to texturing. If we click on texturing, we can apply sort of like, let's say, a city. So this will look really weird. I'll just click done on that, and let's just see what this does. If I zoom in, I don't know if that's done a lot. Probably not. Let's just so go to this here. We can actually paint on a city. So I'm just going to make a mess of this, just as a sort of illustrative point. So you can see I've painted on this city texture, which doesn't really work because it obviously the peaks and troughs, and it's only a 2D. It's not actual 3D. I can also use auto textures, so this will try and generate textures based on our height map for us, like so. And if I was to click done now and preview this, you see how it's sort of done some calculations for us based on the black and white data. But one of the more interesting areas within the texture option is this lines and grids. So I go to lines and grids, I can add some contour lines. So let's add 12 contour lines. I need to choose a contour line color once I press the add button. I'm just going to go white because that's quite a nice generic line. And what this does is this will create sort of the illustrative point of height and elevation for us, let's say. I just press done on that. And what this will now do is on our image, this will create our contour lines. Again, I've probably gone a bit overboard with the number of lines I've chosen there. Let's just zoom out again. So if I go into my 3D view like so, you can see by default it gives us a light. We can move our light source. So we could adjust where our shadows are on our 3D scene. So I can just click and pan around like so. I can also do this by going onto our 3D layers itself here and then just simply clicking on my infinite lights, and it'll bring up this window here where I can now click and drag to move my light source around. And if I go to grounds, this will be essentially our background. So I could, let's say, have this little mountainous peak in the middle of sort of sky. For example, it doesn't look right in the slightest, but that's just sort of an idea. We could also just make our own backgrounds if we wanted to, like we would within the Degenerate PhotoShop. Once we've done all that, we can simply now use this image or file in any of our projects. So we could export this with transparent background. So we could save it as a PNG and then bring it into another project. So we could use this for posters or marketing or materials. We could also go to File, and we can export this as a 3D model. So if we go to 3D, and we should be able to export 3D layer. So I need to just simply select my 3D map group, select my height map reference group, and then I can simply go to export 3D layer. It'll give me an option for what 3D format I want to export it as. So I'm going to use it as a OBJ because that's what I use more frequently for programs such as augmented reality or virtual reality development. I can also choose what format I want my texture in. So I tend to go with either a PNG, a TIFF, or a JPEG. But again, that's down to yourself. And then I'd simply just click OK, click where I want to save it, and it would export it as a 3D model that I could then use and adjust within any other 3D modeling program. It does, from memory, from what I remember, actually also export the light within the scene. So you may also want to delete the light from the exported model and use one within the 3D modeling program itself, because it can cause some conflicts with light data and shadowing looking a bit incorrect. And that's basically 3D map generator in a nutshell. There isn't a huge amount to it. It's fairly cheap to buy as a plugin. Like I said, it's at the time of producing this video, it is working with Photoshop 2019 on Windows and Mac. There are other versions of the 3D map generation software out there. I'd advise picking one that's best for you, but they all pretty much do a similar thing. It's just that Atlas is the one I preferred because it has the option for 3D export. And that's basically it. If you need any help or support, simply remember to comment below. And thank you for watching. If you like this video, please like and subscribe, obviously. Goodbye.